Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to the Buddhist Biohacker. We are live and we are creating conscious content for 1111D. Sorry, everybody. Oh, technical. It's still Mercury retrograde. Anyways, we are creating conscious content for 1111D, and I am your host, Lisa Gunshore, as always. And I am so happy for our guest today. Welcome to our monthly featured programming. And today we have Living Yoga with Satyam. Welcome, Satyam.
Oh, wonderful to be here, Lisa. Thank you so much.
We're so happy to have you. And, you know, there's thousands of things to talk about when we talk about living yoga. So what's on your mind today?
Well, today's topic is why the ancient practice of meditation from 7,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, is so appropriate, and not just appropriate, but helpful and a needed tool in today's ultramodern era. And actually, we had the perfect morning for it, because this morning in our house, we've got multiple computer users and everybody's online, and the power cut.
Oh, wow.
So then we went to the generator, gas leak in the generator line. Again, we lost power. And so it brings up this interesting, I thought the whole thing was very apropos, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. All the difficulties that come in this modern era and why meditation is so helpful for it.
Wow, I love that. That is also very synchronistic for me as well, because we did our global meditation this morning, and part of the practice that I've been teaching this year is meeting in meditation telepathically. If in fact you can't get on your electronics, or the internet does go down, or something is going on, we can always meet in meditation. So I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first question that comes up is, what is meditation? And what were the yogis doing back then? And meditation is a practice of calming the mind, right? You're doing something with the mind, right? Someone can be looking at a mountain, and that's also a form of meditation, just to be at a national park and looking at a mountain. But they were using the mind as a laboratory. And they were seeing ultimately their aim was spirituality, some type of link with something beyond their own unit self. And when people hear that, they can think, I give up. No need to even start. Okay, meditation for stress relief, that I can handle, maybe, but that was their intention. And the interesting thing to know is that the word for meditation in Sanskrit is sadhana. And sadhana does not mean realization. It means effort. And it's just like when you learn to run, or when you go jogging, you're putting forth effort to run. You're not thinking, I'm going to become the Olympic champion, right? Because that's a daunting task. If that was the goal, then people would say, forget it. I used to like to run a lot, but I know I'm not going to win a gold medal. So, but the idea of running, or anything that we do, is the effort we put into it, and we don't worry about the result. And meditation is the same thing. It's using the effort of the mind, of focusing it, and then being open to the possibilities of what transpires. And so they were involved very deeply in using the mind as a laboratory, discovering the chakras, energy, concentration, contemplation, stages of mind, states of consciousness and subconscious mind, and all these types of things. And that tool is very, very helpful in today's world. And one thing why it's so helpful is because from that early era, we have not had a tremendous, if we look at our human society, the biggest change has been in the technological arena, communication. As human beings, we have not changed that much. But what has changed around us is the technology and the speed of life. Back in the day, if you had a donkey and a buggy and stuff that you were carrying, and that tipped over, that was a problem that you could solve. Even if you couldn't put the buggy right side up again, if you called 2 people, you could probably do it. Now, when an airplane goes down, nobody can do anything. It is way beyond the human capacity to solve the problem. The life has become so complex that we can't solve our own problems in the same way that we did in the past. So we've had this whole transformation about how much news we get, how much information we have to go, the speed of life, the amount of information we need to process. And in the past, like even if someone goes camping, if you go camping and you have your little gas stove, most of us can kind of tinker with it and fix it. But what if our digital range goes out in our own kitchen? Very few people can fix that. So what I'm saying is that we've had this tremendous advancement in technology, communication, information processing, all these things. And that's great. The yogis say wonderful. The more technology, the more invention, the better. But we have not had that same increase in capacity of mind. And so it becomes, so we're dealing, it's like if you put a very strong engine on a vehicle, but you didn't update the tires. There's going to be a blowout, right? The things have to go hand in hand. There has to be harmonious development between the two sides. So we've had this massive rise in technology, but we haven't had the massive rise in mind, in the human training of mind. And so it became like a scale that became way out of sync. And the answer is not to bring down technology. No, rather the technology should be increased. We should increase all our technological capabilities. But at the same time, we have to increase our quality of mind. And then we'll be much better suited to manage in this era, because in today's world, we are seeing a rise in depression, a rise in anxiety, a rise in hopelessness. These things were not documented and were not such a pervasive problem amongst human beings in the past, because the problems they were facing were manageable within their 10 fingertips to pretty much solve. And now everything's beyond our fingertips. You know, even the car mechanics, oh, I missed the old carburetors. Now it's all digital, it's all electronic. We can't fix anything, we just plug in, you know. So the point is here, the yogis say, okay, technology, bring it on, make it faster, make it better, but increase our quality of mind. And meditation is that laboratory for increasing our psychic capacity.
That really like activates me, because I just so resonate with what you're saying. And it is so important that we understand the nature of the mind. I mean, the nature of the mind and the nature of reality, you know, the science of life, like these technologies were birthed from meditation, I think, from being connected to these quantum realities and energy fields and the subtle energies and sciences that you feel when you connect in meditation. And this premise or idea or whatever term I guess I want to use, I can't think of the word, but that, you know, we haven't kept up with that. It's a really important topic. We have a couple comments, which by the way, thank you guys for writing them. Let me pull them up here. Somebody wrote, the Air Force went to swap and replace on avionics components rather than fixing them by the 1980s. So true. A commensurate consciousness with technology is one of the comments here. So thank you. And you guys can keep those comments and questions going. But anyways, it's just really, really great topic.
Yeah, interesting. And so then the question is, what is it that meditation has to offer? And one of the aspects is finding our center. When we interact with the external world, the mind loses its original shape. We become extroverted and we lose our psychic balance. And that's fine. I mean, for a little while, we can all interact, but the same way we interact with the external world, we have to interact with our internal world and to keep our mental balance. And by meditation, it develops a certain efficiency of mind. Just by learning certain breathing techniques and by practicing those things, that becomes our nature, becomes our habit, and ultimately our nature to breathe in a very efficient manner, a way that's supportive for keeping the mind calm. That will happen during sleep, during awake time. So even if something maybe minor, like someone says something that you're not pleased about, and then instead of bursting out in anger, something as so simple as that, as a one-on-one human interaction, not even necessarily something with technology, then we have the quality of mind to take a breath and evaluate the situation in a much more balanced, rational manner. And so we need these tools of meditation. And it doesn't mean that we should sit down all day and meditate. It means that we should try different meditations, maybe in the morning and evening, and that will have an effect on our whole day. And the mind becomes adjusted. It becomes adjusted with that. It becomes more calm, more balanced.
Yeah, agreed. And it's interesting because the topic of the week, it seems like, is managing through trauma and what gets activated inside of you because of what's happening across the globe, but also in the United States. There's so much activated energy with politics and all of these things that are going on. And so, that idea of being able to react from a balanced space and a healthy space rather than having those traumas within yourself activated, that's part of what meditation is. And I'm curious, you talk about effort and how does somebody achieve that concentrated effort? I mean, you and I have been meditating a really long time. And so for us, and I love that you're talking about the effort, and I love that you're talking about the activity in meditation, because it can be just sitting, it can be that, but it can also very much be, like you're saying, exploring these energy fields and exploring. And much of my meditation is that it's exploring different interdimensional realities and looking at subtle energies and, gathering information and connecting in much more than just sitting kind of in the darkness, which that's actually a great place to be too, because you get a lot of information there as well, actually. But where does somebody start if they want to work on this achieving? I wrote down, achieving concentrated effort. Like, how does that even begin?
Right. Yeah, it's a very good question. And it's something that the mind is such an elusive thing that no one can really say that they have a trained perfection on that, but it's so what I'm getting at is that we're all working on it. And okay, some have been meditating longer, and some may be early. The first thing, generally speaking, the first thing in meditation is just to close the eyes, to recognize that we have an internal world. It's just like when you walk around town and you knock on someone's door and you say, "Hey, Gary, so great to see you." You're recognizing that person as a friend. And from there, the friendship flourishes. there's a link, there's a relationship, there's a recognition. If you just walk by Gary's house and he's looking out the window and he sees that you never stop by, never stop by, never stop by, he's going to think, okay, there's no relationship. He doesn't. So the main thing with meditation is to recognize that we have a mind. And one of the best ways to do that consciously is to simply close the eyes and take note of what's going on. How jumpy is the mind? If someone closes the eyes and immediately feels bored or frustrated or then antsy. Antsy is the word I'm after. That they want to do something with their hands and feet or with their mouth. Then you say, I really need to meditate. That's like, it's kind of like when you feel thirsty, that's too late. You're already dehydrated. You have to drink ahead of time, right? And same thing to have a calm mind. When someone has been meditating for a while, or even just has the yearning or desire to meditate, just closing the eyes, they'll feel a sense of ease. And they'll think, I like it here. I may not be able to keep my eyes closed all day long, but for a little while, this is very good. It's extremely good. And it has nothing to do with ignoring the external world. Just like if someone goes to sleep, they're not ignoring the external world. Rather, they're regenerating their whole cellular structure. So when they wake up, they're ready to engage properly. Same thing with meditation. It's the reconditioning of mind. And that it starts with the recognizing mind. We are mental beings. You put two people in the same situation, they'll react differently. Not because of their bodies, not because of their possessions, but because of their mind. And so if we can enhance our quality of mind, we can enhance our response and engagement in every single situation we're in. And that's a big thing. And the phrase calm, cool, and collected, everybody wants to be that. And people are attracted to those who have that sense of presence, that sensibility to be in the moment, but to also be able to look back and see the big picture and understand what's going on. And the meditative mind allows that. It creates that sense of pause. The yogis say efficient mind is a slow mind. And in today's world, we're trained to go fast, 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 fast. How fast can you do everything? But with the efficiency of mind, how slowly can you breathe? How calm can you get the mental wavelengths? And that mind is much more potent. The skittish mind, the frenetic mind misses everything. It can't observe and it can't think. The mind has two qualities. It can think and it can remember. Those are the only two things the mind can do. And that thinking quality is enhanced by slowness of mind, by meditative experiences of mind. And that will enable, so we will be able to handle and to perform so much better in this very fast-paced era.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, so the frenzy of life, the fast pace of external ultra-modern living needs to be juxtaposed by a slow, tranquil mind. Then you've got parallelism. Then you have a mind that can handle the frenetic pace of today's world.
Yeah, and I want to talk about this frenetic mind, because it gets triggered by all sorts of things. It can be activated because you're angry or you're frustrated, or it could be activated, in lots of different ways. But one of the things I wrote down here is the idea mind, I like to call it, which is, and I get this, which is why we're talking about it, because I'm a creative person. And so I have what I like to call the idea mind, which is it's going so fast. And there's like all these downloads of ideas, things I want to write, things I want to do, people I want to have the show, all these spiritual things coming in. And so that frenetic energy, even though it's positive, is still frenetic energy. And so what are your thoughts on that calm mind? Like what's your process? Because I know you're very creative too. And so meditation, I think, really helps with kind of ground or activate those ideas. But I'm just curious what your process is, what your thoughts are about like when everything starts to go so fast with all that creative energy, how does meditation come into play for you?
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I always find that meditation helps harness that energy. It doesn't dissipate it, but it harnesses it in the way that you actually really want to move. And because the one thing we have to remember, the mind, the limitation of human mind is that it can only do one thing at one time. So sometimes it seems like we're doing 10 things at once, but actually we're forgetting the other 9 and doing one, forgetting the other. That's why people can't text and drive. They can't do it. They can lose their whole sense that they're driving just by trying to read the text. It's very dangerous. So the meditative mind hones in. It makes the mind pointed on the actual topic that you're most focused on, and then because the mind is honed in on it, and everything else has been, it will achieve that very quickly. You'll get to, rather than bouncing from one thing to I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this. Stress comes when people are overwhelmed with external stimuli and overwhelmed trying to do too many things at once. Someone never feels stressful when they're concentrated on one thing. Even if that thing is trying to solve a difficult problem, even if the mind is engaged in it, engrossed in it, then it will proceed on in a methodical manner, and you'll feel a sense of calm, even though you're working on solving a problem. So, and similarly with the ideas that you're talking about, the meditative mind, how it does it, I don't know, but it will get one idea that it likes, and it will start to move and create psychic momentum and force on that idea. And then everything else starts to dissipate away, and you just get more and more psychic momentum on that idea. And until you've created what you wanted to create, whether it be a paragraph, a video, or whatever it may be. Yeah. So it's quite interesting. But that it allows us to focus on one thing at one time, which brings a sense of concentration and ease.
Totally. Let's talk about active meditation, because I think folks think when I meditate, I'm going to sit and I'm going to have my mudras and I'm just going to, be calm. And that's hard to achieve. That's probably one of the harder ways to meditate. So I love active meditation. For me, with my spiritual gifts, when I sit completely quiet, for me, that's when beings start to show up and people who've passed away and all this stuff happens to me. And so the practice of active meditation, like yoga, that really helps me to actually find that peaceful state of stillness where there is no bombardment of information. And so I'd love to talk about that with you.
Yeah. This is a very important point. Initially, you had asked, we talked about what's the way to start a quiet meditation. And I remember one time I was driving across the country, and I stopped in at a friend's house. And this guy, we went to high school together, and we grew up together. He was, you can say that he's brilliant. He's extremely smart. And we were talking about, at that point I was involved in yoga and meditation, and he said to me, he said, I once sat for meditation. I like it because all these thoughts came into mind, all these thoughts, and all these thoughts that never bothered me then. And it's true, in silent meditation, one can be bombarded by thoughts. They're still your thoughts, but so what I'm getting is that there can be an incremental way into the meditative mind, that to do it through movement. Music is a wonderful tool. In yoga they do kirtan, chanting of a mantra. Then you're actively doing something, but you're using your mouth, your ears, you're singing and dancing, and it helps to get the mind involved in it to get the mind involved. And a yoga practice, a physical yoga practice, that can be very helpful. Walking meditation is okay. Anything where you're moving your physical body, but you're trying to align your breath and your thought with like a mantra or a word. And that helps move from chaotic external engagement. And that's a great medium or process to transform towards silent meditation, to go from very to go from a environment that's very stimulating, external stimulating, to complete silent meditation in one breath is not easy. And so what you're saying, active meditation, where the physical body is being engaged, but you're slowly harnessing that mind in a more concentrated and fluid manner, that is a very, very helpful. It's helpful on two levels. One, we can't sit and meditate every day. We have to move our physical bodies, and that will help us do things in a more meditative manner. And also it serves as that go-between between very busyness of external life and sitting in a quiet room trying to meditate. So I'm not sure if that's exactly what you were talking about, but that type of transformation.
Yeah, and I think, isn't that ultimately why Shavasana is so effective? I mean, back when I first was introduced to yoga about 20 years ago now, that moment for anyone who's listening or watching who has not practiced yoga or is just starting, and really for anybody who's done it too. I mean, really, we all remember that moment when you go to your first yoga class, and at the end, when you end in Shavasana, it's like, oh my gosh, like I can actually like calm down and think and feel. And I wonder your thoughts on the alchemy of getting to that Shavasana place through the asana.
Yeah, absolutely. The yoga asanas or postures they're not just about flexibility. They're not just about toning the muscles. They're about the glands, and ultimately they're about withdrawing the mind from external physicality. They have that effect. And the proof is, if everyone came into class and the first thing you did was 2 minutes of Shavasana, people would be bombarded by all the thoughts that they had all day long. Let's say they got into an argument with a friend, or they just went food shopping, or they just had a meeting. You put them in Shavasana, the mind is going to be flooded with those thoughts. But if you do a yoga practice, an hour practice of bending, of breathing, then it's true, the body becomes more limber, the body becomes stronger, the muscles become toned. All those things happen at the physical level, but there's also a deeper transformation going on psychically, that the mind is starting to work in a more parallel, quiet manner, so that when you do go in Shavasana at the end, you actually can experience what Shavasana is all about, which is a full release and psycho-spiritual engagement, ensconcing the mind in a very serene, calm place. And you'll like that. And that is rehabilitative and reconditions the whole psychic domain. But it demands effort to get there. And that effort can either be in stages of meditation or using the physical body to help get the mind into that meditative state. It's extremely helpful, extremely helpful. Otherwise, we just get caught up in that cyclical rotation of stressful thoughts or depressing thoughts or whatever thoughts that were hounding the mind on that particular day. And we can only think about external physicality in our dealings so much. We only have so much control over those things. We also have to focus on, the yogis say that this world, there's all this panorama of activity, but beneath it is a bedlam of consciousness, the subterranean flow of consciousness. And we have to tap into that. We have to realize that beneath all the engagement, there's a sense of calm in this cosmos. And that's why the yogis see the world and all the freneticness, but they see that in the context of it coming from a root of that subterranean flow of pure, blissful meditative stream that's beneath it. And so they don't get so affected by all the external comings and goings that, that a lot of us do. So that's important. That's an important aspect. That's an important aspect.
Yeah. Well, and it makes me wonder, I want to know your thoughts, because you have such an extensive background and you've been to so many amazing places. And I've been reading Iyengar's Light on Life for a while now. It's kind of one of those things where you read a chapter and you have to soak it in for a while and then you're ready for the next chapter. It's very similar to a yoga practice, honestly. And one of the things that I read just really hit home with me when he talks about meditation being one of the final petals of the lotus flower for your meditation practice, and that it's not really the first thing to jump into. It's once your body and your mind are flexible and strong, and you've gone through all of these other pieces, right? All of the other pieces of the petals of yoga. And so I'm just wondering what with your background and training and experience, like what's your thought today about that and about meditation being at the end of the journey? How do you think it all works together?
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Everybody has their own needs, and when we go to help somebody, if they're hungry and they haven't eaten all day, then we can't tell them to sit down and do meditation. You have to feed the person, right? We all have physical needs. We all have psychic needs, and everybody's different. Literally, everybody has different vibration. Everybody has different quality of mind. And so we all have to go, everybody's at a different point in their journey, in their sense of transformation. So we have to recognize where we are and where someone else is. And that way start, the yogis say you proceed from, if you're going to teach anyone anything, you have to go from known to unknown. So if you're working with a physics student, or that's different from working with teaching a kindergartner, you have to find out what they know and then build on that. And the journey in meditation is similar. That there's a lot of different ways that we can start to refine ourselves that will allow us to become more receptive to the meditative experience. So for instance, if someone has a addiction problem with a substance problem, you can't tell that person, now sit down and calm the mind and become that pristine state, and that addiction will disappear. There have to be intermediary steps that are used to help them overcome their physical addiction, their emotional addiction, their psychic addiction. And little by little, that mind will become purified. It'll be free from the addiction. And then you have to show them, okay, this is how you breathe. This is what mantra is. And it has to go little by little. And people will appreciate the steps, and they'll be then ready for the next step, rather than saying, oh, I don't want to do that. Like my friend said, I don't want to sit in meditation because his mind was bombarded with all these thoughts that he didn't want to be thinking about. But we're in his psychic domain, but you can smother them by going to the amusement park, or subdue them by, you know what I mean, rather than confronting them and addressing them. So hopefully I've addressed your initial question of what you were saying. But in terms of the petal of the practice of meditation being the final petal in the practice, I'd say that's true. That doesn't mean it has to be the last thing you do in this world, but there has to be recognition that there's a transformation. You can't expect someone who's never written to write a book when they first learn. They have to learn the alphabet, they have to learn the script, they have to learn how a sentence works. Everything builds on the next. And once they become fluid with sentences, they'll write pages, and pages will become chapters. But it happens over a continuum.
It's so true. I agree. And I think I've seen it in my own practice. The thing that's amazing is, I've been practicing yoga for 20 years, since my, early 20s. And within that, you know, I thought I was doing yoga. You think, oh, I'm going to a yoga class and I'm practicing yoga. And then when you go and you go through the teacher certification process and you really learn what yoga is all about, for me, it was a cool journey because I realized that my spiritual practice was the yoga. You know, all these years of meditation and understanding spirituality and, you know, making conscious choices with my diet and all of these things that I was doing on a spiritual level was actually the yoga practice. And that was what I learned. But regardless of how you come into perhaps a training or a retreat or a deeper level understanding of yoga, is exactly what you're saying, which is, you know, when you start to truly develop your body and your mind, you come through this sort of tunnel of, you know, you think you know everything, but you really don't. And you kind of then feel like you don't know anything. And then it's like you have this new understanding of what you thought you knew before, but now it looks different because you've integrated that information. You know, I think of that even as simple as, you know, a forward bend. Like I have tight hamstrings, you know, and that's been a journey for me. And so this year I thought I'm going to work on this, you know, and it wasn't stretching your hamstrings every day. You know, there's like a whole other process, you know, there's fascia release and looking at the trauma that's keeping you from having that flexibility. It's the energy that comes up when you're doing it. It's sitting in meditation and looking at that. I mean, there's this whole journey. And so, you know, the meditation is like what finally comes as you work through these, you're physically working these things out. You come to this place where it's finally in meditation and things look different, and there's a clarity that wasn't there before.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I was thinking about this when you were talking about when you're reading the book. Even when you can read the same chapter in 1 year and then 3 years and then 6 years later, and you'll think, I didn't know that was in that chapter. You'll get a whole new perspective on it. It's the same information. And same with what you're saying with this whole process of going through and growing and developing with this, that as we as we refine ourselves, then it becomes we gain a whole new perspective on whatever it is. So what you initially thought yoga to be, that changes as our mind changes. And it's I think that's true in any topic where you're really trying to engage yourself and you're enhancing your psychic domain and perspective on an issue, which is really what yoga is all about. It's about the flowering of the mind, overcoming all type of constrictions. We all have certain parochial ideas or limitations, ego, and yoga is all about freeing oneself, liberating oneself from those, what they call the vrittis of mind, the tendencies of mind. And as we do that, we gain an enhanced perspective. And that makes us see everything all anew again. It's just like if you feel in the 1970s, they were like man versus nature. And they're like, wait a second, that's not working. It's not working. It's we're all in communion here together. You know, it's not about conquering anything. And that's that happens in the individual level and the collective level. And to change of consciousness is really what it is. A new take. It can be just a new take on, and we always want to be open to that. And that's really what yoga is about, making ourselves available and not getting so tunnel visioned into our own professions or status or prestige or ego. Those things are blinding. They feed the unit, the lower qualities of the unit itself. And so you think that something's great going on, but really we want to be open and free and see a very broad view perspective. And that will always open up new doors. And that's why the yoga journey is vast. And like the things you were talking about, there's diet, there's physical transformation, there's, you know, mind and spirituality, our relationship with the world, the relationship, it's a very vast and dynamic engagement or unfolding.
It really is. And you really can't wrap your mind around it. And it really, when you were talking, I was thinking there is no perfect meditation. Like it's not about being a perfect meditator or even saying, oh gosh, well, I meditate more than they do, or any of those things. It's really about being able to sit with yourself.
That's right. That's right. And actually, to compare oneself is degeneration of mind. If you think you're better than someone else, then automatically your mind became degenerated. And actually, that's a thing in the physical yoga classes that we see, that people might think that they're more flexible, or that comparison is, that doesn't work. That only leads to the degeneration of one's own mind. That whatever skill set we have, that only enables us for further service to help other people also grow. And that type of, so so we always want to kind of, what you said, that it's we can't compare it in the same way that so many external things that, like the sports or something, it's not that type of growth and development where you're trying to beat or outrank someone else or anything of that nature, but constantly try to, yeah. So that's an important feature, no doubt.
It is. I was pulling up a quote by Osho, which, as controversial as he is, he still has really great quotes. But there's a particular card in one of his Zen Tarot decks that talks about comparison, and it's a comparison of the bamboo and the wood. And he says, comparison is a disease. It is like a cancer that goes on destroying your very soul. Each individual is unique, and comparison is not possible. I am just myself, and you are just yourself. And
Yeah.
I remember that quote a lot, because it's interesting, like no matter what you're doing, no matter what you're teaching, but when you teach yoga, you can definitely see who's looking in the mirror, who's checking what the other people are doing, and who's truly engaged in their practice. And it's been a big lesson for me, because I am hyper stable. I am not hypermobile. So, for me, I went through that journey of like, gosh, there's no way I could do that, or gosh, I can't touch my toes, or gosh, I can't, and there's a point where you come out of that, and that's a beautiful space to be, is to come out of that space of, you know what, I'm just me, and I'm in my practice, and I'm seeing results for myself. And it doesn't really matter what anybody else is doing or how I think I should look or how it should be. But comparison is it's a big thing. And even within meditation can be the exact thing that neutralizes that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. In the physical realm, in those classes, that we should just think that I'm here in class with all my brothers and sisters, and everybody's progressing and everybody's doing it at their own rate, and we should be supportive of one another. That's like the common outlook that should be adopted. No one gets any prizes. The prizes is to help other people advance. That's the prize. And in meditation, we're trying to overcome the unit self, the unit ego. And there's, as one becomes more involved in meditation, there's a sense of surrender that develops. And then the yogis say that's the highest thing, of realizing that you're not the doer. You are not that there's some greater thing better than yourself. You did not create your own birth, and you're not responsible for your own death. That there's some greater force, whatever you want to call that force, whatever name you want to use. But and the way to link with that is to shed oneself of the unit ego. And so if you're thinking that I'm doing this, I'm this, that's reinforcing the unit ego. And I may have mentioned this analogy in the last one, where if you take a cup and put it at the bottom of the ocean, and then the 8 ounces of water inside that cup is like the unit self. And then the only way to become part of that great ocean is to slowly, the process of meditation is slowly lifting that cup off the floor of the ocean so that it can mix with the vast, unending seas all around it. Otherwise, you're just entrapped in that own unit shell. And that gets reinforced by the thought that I'm doing this. I'm a good meditator. I know how to breathe. I've learned so many mantras. And that is antithetical to one's progress. Whereas, sure, we have to learn techniques, but there has to be a sense of awe that we are not the totality. And that sense of yearning, that to go beyond the trappings of the unit itself, then you're on the path of yoga. I don't care if you touch your toes or not, but you're open to the experience of that something is more than my ego in this cosmos. Something goes beyond, that exists beyond my fingertips. And then that's the fast train. That's good. That's the way to go.
Yeah. Well, and it's the seed point for awakening, and that's, what I hope everyone gets from that,
Absolutely.
And, I would love for you to share where you think folks should start, for everyone who's listening to this. And I'm going to guess that everybody who's listening probably has tried to meditate or has some kind of practice. But when you listen and you think, well, gosh, I don't even know if I'm doing it right, or I don't know how to start, or what do you think are some good tools or good ways to just get started connecting in?
Yeah, we should. That's true. And it needs very practical approach we should take. One is, let's say is for meditation, the first thing is you have to find a place. So try and create a space in your house where you can sit down without interruption. Maybe, so once you have that space, then you have to create the space in your day saying, okay, I'm going to sit there at 7 in the morning or 9 in the morning or before dinner. Generally speaking, we all become a little bit psychically groggy after we eat. I'm the worst. If I don't talk to me, don't ask me any questions. I'm doing this podcast on a good or bad. I figured I'm doing this on an empty stomach. You don't want to talk to me on a full stomach. That doesn't work. And so meditation also, the stomach should be empty. So doing it, reserving a little bit of time before breakfast and dinner, or is say, okay, I'm going to sit that time. The stomach is mostly empty at that point. And I'm going to sit in that place where I've designated for me to sit. And so once I've got my time and my place, then you have to put your body there. And then close the eyes, right? We talked about this idea of recognizing that there's a world within. And then just working on a breathing pattern, a slow down the breathing and being patient. And then from there, we can explore a mantra, or one can just think, I am peace, or you just cultivate the yearning. No mantra, they say, what's more powerful, the idea or the mantra? Mantras are not magic. The idea behind it, the yearning behind it. So you cultivate the yearning that I want to experience some sense of blessedness, some sense of peace, some sense of equipoise that I haven't gotten when I eat an ice cream cone, or when not that type of satisfaction. I want some lasting satisfaction, something that goes deep inside. And that is the stepping stone to moving through one's meditation. Now, one can use a phone app that has some type of meditative tools on it. One can listen to music a little bit. There's lots of different ways. So there needs to be a little bit of personal exploration, but there has to be the desire. No one can do anything in this world without the desire. You can take a child, give them a Harvard scholarship, pay all the money, give them a great dorm room, but if they don't desire to learn, they're not going to learn. So you have to be honest with oneself and say, you know what? Even if I don't really want to do this, I'm going to try it. And I'm going to be honest with myself. And I'm going to sit, and if I promise to myself to do 5 breaths, I'm not going to do 3 and say I did 5 and walk away. I'm going to do my 5 breaths and then walk away. So there's a certain honesty and a certain reflection is needed. So no one can do this for you. But at the same time, you can get a lot of good tips and pointers from other people who've been on the path, and technology can also be helpful ways. So what I would say, like any routine, if you eat dinner if someone eats dinner every night at 8 o'clock, at around 7:55, they start getting very hungry, and they're ready to, at 7:15, they may not be hungry, but just before they're about, and the body's ready for it. Similarly, if you sit and you develop that sense of consistency, the mind will say, I like that quiet time. That's good. And so you have to get through that initial, it takes a little bit of discipline to be and say, I am going to sit and do it. I'm going to sit. It might just be 2 minutes, but I'm going to do it. And that's how the whole thing develops. And it needs, so that's what I would say for folks, that, a little bit of open honesty about who we are and what we want to do. And then a little bit of stick-to-itiveness to say, okay, I'm going to give it a try.
Yep. I love it. And I think, go take a yoga class, and get yourself engaged in that active piece too. And if you're having a hard time, if you sit down and you're like, I don't even know how to do this, you might find your way in, through that physical practice also, which I love.
Absolutely. And what you just said, go find satsang. It needs a community of people. Satsang is good company. Yeah, that's right. So whether it be, do it with friends, do it together, so go to yoga class with friends, or go with like-minded people will help you cultivate the habits that you're trying to achieve. Yeah, that's well stated.
Absolutely.
I mean, your side was well stated.
Thank you. Well, I think it's all well stated. I mean, it's all such good information, and it's amazing how fast time flies, because there's so much to talk about. I mean, my God, there's so much to talk about. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books and texts and world teachings, and oh my gosh, I mean, it's just such an extensive topic. But I'm glad that you brought this particular topic up this week, because I think it's really at the forefront of my mind and many people, I think, out here in our community of, how do we connect in, and how do we find that balanced state that you were talking about at the beginning, to be able to manage through where we're at in our world right now and the journey that we are on together, as a collective community. What are your words of wisdom for today before we end our time? And I want to make sure that everyone knows how to connect in with you, because Satyam has an amazing website, you guys, and just great services and classes. And he's just such a great teacher. And you can actually access on his Living Yoga playlist here on YouTube, you can actually access a few of his classes that were in the summit, so that you can get a taste of who he is and what he has to offer. And I just highly recommend it, because it's just such a great, compassionate practice, I feel. But yeah, what are your words of wisdom today?
Can the words of wisdom come in the form of a story?
Yes, I was hoping that was going to happen. Yes, I love your stories. So do it.
Sure. So we have a couple minutes here.
Yeah, we have time. Yeah.
Not too long of a story. So way back when, every age on this earth, there's something that people cherish that makes people great. And way back in the warrior age, in the Kshatriyan era, when Krishna was on the planet, they were archery. Archery was a big deal. And so especially the young men, young boys, were taught archery. And way back when, there was a family of 5 young boys. They were the Pandavas. And ultimately they joined and they fought with Krishna. But one day they were going out for archery practice with their teacher. Now, in India those days, and still today, the teacher is known as acharya, a person from whose conduct you can learn from. So they went out with their teacher, whose name is Dronacharya, and he took them out for archery practice that day. And there were 5 of them. And they thought it was just going to be business as usual, go shoot a whole bunch of arrows and bows and we'll be good to go. And the Dronacharya says, he tells the youngest one, Nakul, pick up your bow. And Nakul picks up his bow. He says, take aim. He says, yes, Charlie, take aim. He says, do you see the target? He had put a little wooden bird out across the field. And he said, do you see the target out there? He says, yes, Charlie, I see the target. He says, do you see that little butterfly just flying around the target? He says, yes, I see the butterfly flying around the target. He says, don't shoot. Have a seat. And Nakul was like, don't shoot, have a seat. So when I didn't get to shoot any arrow, so he sat down. Then he took his twin brother, Sakul. He said, Sakul, pick up your bow. So he picks up his bow, and the same routine starts to happen. Charlie says, do you see the target, the wooden target I've set out there? He says, yes, I see the target. He said, do you see that little bug crawling just around the outside of the target? He said, yes, I see that bug. He said, no need to shoot. And he also sat down. At this point, the boys were thinking, has the teacher, is he getting a little soft? Why? What's in the brain? What's happening? How come? And then he gets to the third brother, Arjun, and he looks at him and he says, no need. And then he goes to the next one older, Beam. Beam had arms like tree trunks. And he says, Beam, do you see that target across the field? And Beam's got his waist pulled bow, the bow's all the way bent, ready to pull. He said, yes, Acharya, I see the target. He said, do you see that little berry just underneath the target? He said, yes, I see the berry underneath the target. He said, no need to shoot. And then he asked the eldest, Judistir, pick up your bow, pick up the bow. And he says, do you see the target all the way out there? He says, yes, I see the target. And he says, do you see that little spider web just off the target? He said, yes, I see the spider web off the target. No need to shoot. At this point, they were furious. Nobody shot an arrow, and they were fed up. Then Acharya says, Arjun, pick up your arrow, pick up your bow. He says, yes, Acharya. And Arjun would grow up to become one of the famed archers of this world. He said, Arjun, take aim. He said, do you see the target? Arjun's like, yes, Acharya, I see the target. He says, do you see that little ant calling to the outside of the target? He says, no, Acharya, I only see the target. He said, good, then shoot and fire. And he hits it right on. And in whatever we do in this world, we can't be sidetracked. We can't see what goal we have. Focus on the goal. Don't look at all the auxiliary parts, all the moving things. That will divert you. It'll ruin your momentum. You'll end up somewhere else where you didn't want to go. So you keep eye on the target and focus in on that. And whether it be in your personal meditation, your yoga practice, whatever thing you want to achieve in this world, you focus on that, keep the mind harnessed on that, and you'll get there. That's the way to get there.
You know, it's pretty amazing synchronicity in that story, because we have a comment about this very thing, like in our comments, which I think is pretty amazing. Joseph wrote, Arjuna knew the old stories and saw God through that lens. Paramahansa Yogananda showed how that Shruti was mapped onto our nervous system. The bow is our survival instincts. And nice. That comment came before you even shared the story, so I had to share it. So awesome.
Wonderful. Very good.
So wonderful. We'll remind everybody how they can connect in. We'll have everything in the show notes, all the links as well, but just remind everybody how to connect in with you.
Sure. You can find me online, Renaissance Yoga. You can www.ren yoga. So you don't have to spell out the whole Renaissance, REN yoga.com. I'm Renaissance Yoga on Instagram. I'm a big blogger, but from my website, there's lots of ways to interact, classes, posts, all different types of tools, but so you can find me there. And I'm very quick to respond, whether by my text or by email or however you'd like to contact me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Satyam. I just love these months together so very much.
Oh, it's great to be able to sit down and talk to you. I always appreciate and welcome the opportunity. I'm so glad that we're getting this going on a monthly basis at this point.
Me too. And we have folks saying hello from Italy. So thank you guys for joining us from everywhere. Somebody just wrote, I love Satyam's story. And I do love your stories. I really have come to look forward to them at the end of our talks. It's just it's just, they're so good. So thank you so much. Thank you for being who you are and for sharing yourself with us here.
Oh, thank you for creating this wonderful platform and having me on. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And you guys can find Satyam on Living Yoga the first Tuesdays of every single month at 11 a.m. And we just love having you here. And I'll get all of his information in the show notes in mere moments. And just thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who's listening and watching in. We just appreciate and love you so very much.
Okay. Namaskar. Best to everybody.
Yeah, thank you. We'll see you guys back at 3:30.